I come from Sarajevo, and I covered the Bosnian War, which is one of the worst conflicts, actually the worst conflict Europe saw after the Second World War. It involved 100,000 victims, 1.5 million refugees. Now, that doesn't maybe sound that much, but for a population of 4 million people altogether, it's kind of a lot. So half of the population was expelled, left their homes. Some of them came back. 100,000 were killed. And it involved heinous crimes, horrible war crimes, including genocide. Okay, that all sounds very bad. It was bad, but it lasted for nearly 4 years, and I think that the conflict was not long enough to erase the memory of peace and of common life. Now, what is common life in the Bosnian context is centuries and centuries of not living next to each other, which is what I have seen here, but living with each other. I was just telling Dalia, when I married my husband, I come from a Muslim background. When I married my husband, I really didn't know he was a Serb. It didn't matter. His name was Boris. It could have been a Croat. I don't know. So we produced a child. His name is Igor, and I gave him that name because I liked it. My best friend in high school was Igor. That's not a Muslim name. It's kind of a Russian name, but I liked it. It was irrelevant at the time. Unfortunately, I divorced this husband, and I married another one who was a Catholic. So he raised my child, and now what is my child? My child likes to say he's a true Bosnian. Sarajevo, before this war broke out in 1992, had almost half, maybe 45%, right? Between 40 and 45% of mixed marriages, like mine. This means that the conflict did not go through the society. It didn't cut through the society. It cut through the families. That's why it was so brutal. It lasted only 4 years, and that was not enough, not long enough for us to forget what it was like to live together. The wounds were horrible. Still, people are licking their wounds still, even 20 years after. But there is a certain nostalgia for this joint living. People talk about this with a smile on their face. Oh, remember when we all together, this or that. This is something I have never seen. I have not seen in Jerusalem. So it's really not a similarity. It's a it's really a big difference, I guess. So what my society is right now going through is still a political status quo. There is still a struggle on the political level whether this country is going to fall apart along ethnic lines, whether it's going to stay together, be centralized or regionalized. But while this struggle is going on, people are getting back together somehow. There is one more advantage that we had, and that was a very developed arrogance of the urban population. Sarajevans are totally arrogant. They look down on everybody else, particularly on the rural population. And even during the war, when snipers were shooting at people from the hills down and killed Sarajevans, we had signs on intersections that said, "Pazi sniper," beware sniper. And very often I saw that this sign would be replaced, and it would say "Pazi papak." Papak is hoof in my language, like from a cow, a leg, a hoof. And that was to us, that was how we called derogatory, how we called rural people. So violence within itself was identified, was always with rural people. And if you want to be urban and arrogant and a real Sarajevan, you despise violence, you despise division and nationalism. This is all below us. That's what it was. It changed a little bit during the war, out of rage, but that spirit is still present. It was not killed in this war, and it's coming back slowly. The arrogance is coming back. The cooperation, you're totally in if you have a friend in Belgrade. You're totally in if you have a friend in Banja Luka. You're totally in if you go picnic on the other side over the weekend. It's a fashion. It's unfashionable to be a nationalist and to be kind of narrow, I think that's an advantage. It's a matter of really fashion. That helps a lot. It brings people back together. Sarajevo is somehow a divided city, more or less, but in all honesty, I don't know where the border is. I think it's when you cross over and it starts being in Cyrillic, right? That would be the Serb side. But there is no...
For someone who noticed the difference between...
Yeah, if you know, maybe, yes. But they come over and work in this part of Sarajevo. We go over there because it's cheaper. We do all of our shopping over there. And I think that Adis was telling yesterday that a disco club, Bakusjel, in the Serb part of the city had to close down over Ramadan because there were not enough people to visit it. So these differences, the animosities are fading. They're slowly getting out of our lives. And what prevents them to disappear completely is kind of peer pressure, I would say that. Within our own communities, we have people who are hardcore, who don't want any contact with the other group. And then when you have contact with the other group, they condemn you, they criticize you. I think that this is what happens here as well. People who want to cooperate are... I hear even get death threats. Okay, that doesn't happen in Bosnia, but it's uncomfortable when somebody is you constantly have to justify yourself. So what recently happened in Sarajevo was the first Bosnian Pride, and I think that on this Pride there were maybe 12 gay people. I don't know any of them. But whole of Sarajevo came out, thousands of people participated because it was liberating. Here was something we all can condemn. It was liberating for us just to get rid of this traditional restrictive way of thinking. So whoever really thought of himself as being urban had to appear at the Pride. It was a total surprise. What also brings people together, I think, is the poverty. And one good thing that happened to Bosnia is corruption. Corruption is really cool. Okay, just corruption is really cool in our case because there's an uprising on one side against corruption, and on the other side, and on this is the basis. This is how people get together, and when now we are seeing that when on one side demonstrations erupt, the other side rises as well. It has connected people, and people have started calling each other brother and sister. I could tell you, I could tell you hours about this, but it's, you know, this is from me. So.
Thank you. I've often thought that we should try to find, identify those kinds of struggles where we can legitimately cooperate with two sides of a conflict or more sides of a conflict, because there are some things that are shared concerns, and I think hopefully we can talk about that.